Well, in August, South Africans spent about 20.5 billion rand on fuel. This says the country consumed approximately 970 million litres of petrol and 980 million of diesel. The retail margin increase of 3.5 cents per litre on all grades of petrol implemented on Wednesday last week could see consumers spending nearly 22.1 billion rand to fill up their vehicles in September. Joining us for more is Energy Minister Dipuo Peters. Thanks so much, Minister, for joining us this afternoon. Let's get straight into what's been making headlines ever since, just prior to the latest fuel hike coming into being, and that's, just what's contributed to it and how these hikes are actually calculated. Let's break down why an increase of 93 cents was a necessity in the first place.
Remember that the petrol price or the crude oil price has increased to about $110. That in itself is the weight in which that it further pressurizes the price of petrol in South Africa, but also the international product prices, as well as the fact that in this particular month we had to increase, as per the decision and agreement in September of 2010 with the bargaining processes for the increase of the petrol attendants as well as the cashiers. So that in itself also increased the amount of petrol price to the level at which it is as at present.
Minister, I understand the oil price at the moment, Brent crude oil on my screen, elevated prices, $114.50 per barrel, something like that. At early June, I think it was just below $90 a barrel. So I understand why the price has gone up. What I don't quite understand, and you've just alluded to it, is when you say, your department says the increase was necessary in order for service station operators to finance the wage increases for service station pump attendants. This seems to me transferring the burden from the private sector to the public sector and the state, and therefore the private sector workers have now been almost subsidised by the state. Surely that's wrong. Surely private enterprise should absorb all this.
I really don't understand when you say that the public sector is actually subsidizing the private sector, because we determine the price, which then is what the public sector, the private sector will be charging the consumers. And you would know that in most of our services in South Africa, the consumer pay principle is applied. And I want to indicate that the petrol attendants, the decision to increase their wages as per the indicators that I gave today with about the 3.5 cent is because they are the lowest paid in the total value chain of the petroleum sector. We have a situation where the people that actually fills our trucks, that fills our motorcycles, that fills our cars are the ones that actually get least paid. In 2010, they were being paid at about 9 rand per hour. And the cashiers who actually keep the money for the retail sector were being paid at about 13 rand per hour. So we saw the need at that particular time already to look at making it possible. And you'd remember there was a strike, and we wanted to avoid every year having a strike in this important sector. Imagine a situation where this sector would have a strike every now and then. So we had to determine a long-term trajectory in terms of the price increases. And we also still believe that this is not even enough, but we know that it would have a definite impact on the individual oil consumers, but also on the economy as a whole. You would know the price of taxis for the lowest paid category of our community is going to go up. The price of transport generally, but also the price of goods and services is affected by the oil price. So I just want to say to you that the petrol attendants, really, we tried, and we also still believe that it is not at the level at which we would want it to be. But it is not subsidizing the public, subsidizing the private sector.
Minister, you've got the DA putting on the table the fact that petrol can be more affordable if government taxes and levies are reduced to a minimum and the basic fuel prices reflects oil supply fundamentals over the long term. Is that simply not viable?
You know, it is interesting that people say that. With the debate about the e-tolling, there were suggestions that the price of petrol could be increased with 14 cents to be able to accommodate the tolls. And unfortunately, in South Africa, everything that people don't feel like paying directly, they would say, pile it or dump it on the oil price. And when the oil price increases, they don't realize that over and above what the international oil market determines, we as South Africa has got this additional weights. And that is why I'm saying it is important that we remember that over and above everything else, we've got this additional, which is the fuel levy that, remember in April, we had to increase with about 20 cents, and 50 cents. And that in itself, if you take it out continuously every month, it has a bearing. So over and above the price, you actually add also the what is it called, the fuel price, and you also add the other weights. And in this month in particular, we had to mention the fact that it had to include the cost of the to the retail margins for the payment of the petrol attendants.
Minister, let's move on from oil to gas now. I interviewed somebody on my radio show at the end of last week, and he said, never mind anything that's happening in Europe or the United States of America or the elections, the political machinations that are going to be occurring in South Africa between now and the end of the year. The most important announcement of 2012 will turn out to be the fact that South Africa is allowing exploration of shale gas resources. Tony Twine, before he sadly passed away recently, said that it would create hundreds of thousands of jobs, and it's also presumably going to be a very important cornerstone of energy security for South Africa and the region. Is it really that important, do you think?
I think that as the Minister of Energy, responsible for energy security, as well as the mandate to make sure that we have a reliable, cost-efficient supply of energy, I'm very excited about the decision of Cabinet to allow for exploration, because it is that exploration that will tell us the resource and the magnitude of the resource that we have. And I would believe that we've got an opportunity before us. We have the technology for GTL, which is the gas to liquid, which then would also make it possible for us that we generate petroleum products from gas, but also imagine the decisions that we can take about potential for gas-fired or gas-fueled vehicles, but also the consumption of gas in our own households. Our industries, for example, the tourism industry, as well as the motor manufacturing industry, is predominantly dependent on gas. So we've got an opportunity before us. The International Energy Agency says that we are entering the golden age of gas. And it would be wrong for us as South Africa, when we have been given an indication that we've got this potential, to say we are not going to actually explore. Because exploration means for us to go and investigate whether it is true that we have those volumes of gas, of shale gas, that we are informed. But also, as the Minister of Energy, I'm very much alive to the fact that we have to make sure that the gas exploration does not contaminate the water sources, but also at the same time that we use environmentally friendly technology to be able to liberate or extract the gas. So this is an opportunity for South Africa, and I'm happy that the President, together with the Minister of Mineral Resources, could actually advise Cabinet that let us allow for this exploration. And we are saying this is an opportunity. If it is going to, when it is explored, and we are told just 10% of it can have quite a lot of benefits. Imagine the job opportunities in the Karoo, the job opportunities for the people of South Africa broadly, but also the ANC, the ruling party in 2007 at Polokwane, said that our energy consumption must be diversified. This is an opportunity for energy diversification, and we're looking forward to that.
Yes, I'm looking forward to it as well, Minister. In fact, my children are furious with me because they like sheep, but that's their problem. I think it's a fantastic opportunity. How much will the government be involved, or are you leaving it all up to the private sector, notably some of the international oil companies and gas companies?
I would believe that the Minister of Mineral Resources would give the details, but we have lobbied the Minister to make it possible that the percentage for South African participation in this exploration, but also in the total extraction of the gas, including the production and consumption thereof, should be predominantly South African. We believe that we will go out at about 50%, or if given the necessary resources, would be more. And we're looking forward to the participation of companies like Petros A, which is the national oil company of South Africa, but also the potential for Sasol and the potential for any other South African companies that can emerge. So this is an opportunity. And I just want to say, this is an opportunity that we cannot allow to slip through our hands or to our fingers, because 10 years, 20 years from now, we can't talk about transformation of the shale gas industry when we actually were part of the founding, part of the initial processes. So it means that the stake for South Africa must be really sizable so that the people of South Africa can benefit greatly.
The success of discovery in terms of shale gas resources, nuclear build as well, how much of that is dependent on before we get to a stage where inflation will be, as you've recently put, the main criteria used to determine future electricity tariff increases? Is that pricing mechanism dependent on the discovery of other reliable energy sources?
I'm happy to indicate to you that the decision to uplift the moratorium happened at the time when we as the energy department are actually busy looking at the energy or the petroleum price model. And the fact that we now have this resource tells us that we need to actually factor in, unlike probably the coal to liquid technology, we need to factor in the fact that we will then have to consider the fact that this resource is locally produced, and this resource would be locally beneficiated, and therefore this resource would be locally marketed. And I think it is important that we look at the way in which we model the price of the liquid fuel going into the future, into that. And we're looking at probably in 10 years' time having a different model.